everybody, this is MarcyFineArt and welcome to this video on using colored pencil and marker. This video is going to be separated into actually 4 distinct parts. In this first section, I want to talk a little bit about how you choose a good reference photo, a good practice reference photo. I use my tablet a lot because the monitor gives me really good light on the subject, and what we're looking for a good practice is a photo that has no background. Like this one, it has very simple shapes. Here you can see we've only got 5 flowers and some leaves. The glass vase means really that glass vase is barely there at all. And that, again, that you can really see those distinct darks and lights. So this is what we're talking about first here is let's choose a really good reference photo like this one to begin. Now we'll move on and I'll show you how I used this to get started. Just kind of following shapes. I've discussed this in my other videos that I don't name things. I don't say, well, there's a leaf. By not naming what I'm drawing, I am able to talk to myself in the terms that they are only shapes, not that they are leaves or flowers. So that's what I'm doing. So those are pretty much the basic shapes I see happening there. So I would say that is step 1 to the colored pencil and marker drawings. Step 2 is getting an adequate understanding of where the lights and the darks are in this image. And that's what we'll be focusing on next. Now, I mentioned that there's a shortcut that you could take if you weren't interested in doing all the drawing, if you weren't interested in doing all of the initial shading like I did to get to this. This was the final piece that I got to. So let's say that, what you're interested in is practicing just with your markers and colored pencils. Well, what you can do is you can, I mentioned this, you can print out just a grayscale photo of this piece and practice with markers and colored pencils to get a feeling of what it feels like to layer up these media. And actually, given the way ink interacts with paper, you will be picking up some of the ink that's actually on the sheet of paper. So whether it's cardstock, whether it's just some typing paper you use, you're going to pick that up. So let's watch and see how that would work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this light green marker. And you're going to see, if you can see that marker, it does blend in with the colors surrounding it. And that's part of the technique. Again, my entire approach as I've worked with art throughout my life is this, actually not throughout my life, for the last 20 years, is the layering and being attentive to what is underneath what I'm using. So part of what is underneath what I started with continues to show through. And then if I really don't like that, I always have the opportunity to use white, which I use a lot of white. And I use these Posca markers. Again, these are acrylic paint markers. So I can go out and entirely create a white white over this and layer it from there. So it's just learning to practice and experiment with layering things one on top of the other. You let them dry a little bit and continuing toward that until you get the effect you want. There's no precise method of getting there. It's just your own practice. So I'm just showing you how it works for me, and this would give you a good way to practice. Now, as I see that, I see that didn't leave this tip as dark as I wanted it. So to give you an idea of what I could do next, I'd use a pencil, right? It's dark. Again, I focus on darks and lights. So I'm going to go right back in with the pencil and darken it down some. Then I'm going to say, well, now it's not quite green enough. Well, I might use that green over it again. And now it's blending a little bit with that pencil. But I'll continue that until it's at the right shade of a green that makes me happy. Like I'm getting happier with it now. So let's watch a little bit with what might happen with these tulips. Now I'm using purple just to start giving it some color. You see they kind of are blending right with that dark ink underneath. There's that. And now I'm going to I used colored pencils as well. I'm going to use a lighter shade of purple and my pink colored pencil to get some different shadings of purple on that. And right here, I want it lighter pink. So I'm just using that. Now I say to myself, I really want it even lighter. I want something even lighter right on that tulip. So I'll use white marker. I'll let it dry for a second. And I'm going to use this pink colored pencil again. Now watch, you're going to see it lighten up for me. And I may keep doing that until it lightens up to what, but you saw it lightened up quite a bit. You can see the lighter color right here. Now this, so let's take this one over here. He's quite pink in that reference photo. So I'm going to just do that. And just to show you, there's my colored pencil. Now if I want him even lighter still, here's my white acrylic marker. I'm very, very lightly going over that. Very, very lightly. Again, this is, you're going to practice that till maybe it's a little bit lighter. Again, part of that gray will show through. Now I'm going to let it dry just for a second. This is the beauty of something if you're an impatient artist like me. I don't like to sit here for decades. You know, I want it to dry. So it's pretty dry. So let's say I want to do a little bit more pink under it. Or I'm sorry, over it. So now you're seeing I'm getting a pink flower. So this is how it works for me. Now, let's say I want, this stem has some green in it. Right now it's totally black. I just very lightly go over this. So it's a really dark green, and I mentioned I always blend all my colors somewhere into these because as a whole piece, the way light hits something, all colors are in all of your work in some way. So I'm getting that, but I want it to lean toward green, so I just do some layers until I get the shade of green I'm looking for, and it's got some purple in it. And I actually will take, this is on a computer, but if I had a photo or whatever I was using, and I'll sit it right next to the thing and I'll go, how close am I to those colors? Am I light enough? And so if I looked here and I said, oh wait, look, I'm not light enough, I will go back and I will lighten it up. So I will go back in and lighten that. And for the billionth time, sorry I say this so often, for me, if you want a strong piece of art, it's more about the values than the color. So I really pay real close attention to lights and darks. Now, to me, he's getting closer to the color I'm looking for. If you see that, I think it's closer to the lightness I'm looking for. I'd say it's a little bit warmer. I see almost like a little bit more yellow in it because it's a little bit brighter. So I'll put a little bit of yellow colored pencil over it to see if I'm closer, and I am. So I'm looking at this again. So that's how I would practice. Again, I just printed this off with all those darks and lights. So I have a way to practice and see what happens by layering over that. And that cuts out the first two steps for me, and it gives me something to practice with, just focused on color. So that's the shortcut. So again, my 3 steps. I draw the image with shapes, put in my darks and lights, and then I layer the colors. And the layering process is very improvisational, and you're just going to keep going, and you can with these kinds of media. You can keep going until you get to the color that you want. There's really no wrong way to do it. You're just going till you get there. And that's my favorite, that's my way of doing art. So that's the shortcut for your practice. I have learned to use either a pencil to do these darks and lights, or if I'm just doing a light sketch of all this, I would use a pen. Because what happens then when I use the marker and the colored pencils, they blend with this, and that's an effect I like. It's not absolutely necessary, but you can do that. So to give you some hints how I did these darks and lights, I always squint my eyes at my reference photo. If I'm outside, I'm squinting my eyes to look at whatever's outside. If I'm looking at a reference photo, I'm squinting. What that does is taking a lot of information away from our eyes, so we only see a lot of the lights and darks. And so that's all I'm looking for here. I'm not looking for those colors. Even to practice this method, if you print this in grayscale and then try to draw it, you will be getting a lot of practice in doing your darks and lights. And up at the top here, to help myself, I make a little, I call it a legend of dark and lights. So I'm looking at where are my lightest lights? Where's a second tone, third, fourth? And I don't try to go a lot further with this because I'm going to put color right on top of it. So here's my stage 2. So again, stage 1 was making just the shapes. We already did that. Stage 2 is doing the darks and lights, which are called values. So now I'm going to go ahead and start putting in my colored pencil and marker. And that would be your final stage. Now what I've done so far here is I'm putting just a little bit of green in. This entire thing is green. I'm going to be using a green marker. These are acrylic paint markers, and I am going to be using colored pencils and other colors of markers. So this is a very fluid process. I have to go rather quickly. Things blend right on the page, and you'll find that as you do it. This is where it becomes kind of an improvisational style of working that you can only find out by doing yourself. So this is called the local color. It's green. You know, I don't get all twisted about, you know, putting two colors together to get that green. I start with what I see and move forward. So let's see how we proceed to the next phase. So I'm still working with markers, and now I'm using this yellow marker. And what's really interesting with a yellow marker in this pencil, it blends with that gray tone of the graphite in the pencil to become a really kind of cool shade of green. So I don't have to do a whole heck of a lot here at this point. To me, I'm kind of liking how that looks, you know, as it is right now. So within, you know, 5 minutes with a little tiny bit of green marker and a little yellow and just with the graphite on the bottom, I've come to this point. So let's see now when I put those tulips in, these pink colors over here, what, you know, if I get something similar, and I can go right to a quick finish with something like this without, you know, layering up really far. So we're still in phase, we're in the third phase, which is the color phase, where I'm putting the marker over my darks and lights. So it took me about a half an hour to put this layered colored pencil and marker over my gray, and the gray was just a huge help. I'll show you what I've used. I've used a green colored, just a regular green colored pencil. This is called Color Erase. It's an erasable colored pencil. I don't erase it. I used a Crayola pink colored pencil, a purple colored pencil, my yellow paint marker. I've used my regular pencil with my eraser. I used a yellow colored pencil, and I also use my Posca marker. This Posca marker serves so many purposes. It is a blending tool. It is like an eraser. You can get rid of anything you don't like. It can lighten an area so you can go over it again. So these are all, I think I also use this, and this pink marker. So these are the tools I used to get here, and it was just a matter of layering and layering. And if I didn't like what I did, I would use this Posca marker. Again, it's white. It's an acrylic paint marker. It will go over anything. But I typically use it really light, just to shade over things so I can redo them. If I need to block something totally out, I will. But again, it's my blending tool, making things lighter tool, softening edges tool. So this is the way I use colored pencil and marker, and this would be my third step. And again, if you want to print out a grayscale piece like this on the computer and do it, practice on it, it's an excellent way to do it because you're learning to use your lights and darks, and that is the whole key, in my opinion, to a really strong piece. The last thing I might say here is I used a lot of purple in the very dark areas. It holds the piece together. I've said this many times in other tutorials. I use the same colors throughout. So you'll find my greens have pinks and purples in them, which gives them a more realistic shade. Because when we look at something in real light, it's unified by the light that you see it in. So when you use colors together, there's typically all the colors that you use to recreate it existing in that piece. You can even see down here at the bottom, I used pink to get that kind of glass look here. So again, that's the 3 stages, the shapes, the darks and the lights, and the final are the layering of these colored pencils and markers. And I'm going to break those down in other videos. In fact, in my basic drawing videos, I already talk about how to draw in blacks and whites. You can go there immediately to check that out. But stay tuned for me to break this down further. So thanks again. This is Marcy Fine Art signing off.